Kia ora everyone, here in the Export Beer Garden Studios for the ACC. This is the Benchwarmers Podcast, a couple of Kiwi basketball fans talking hoops. And Joel Harrison, we've got a big podcast today, literally big. Our guest coming into the studio very shortly, he's over 2 metres tall, New Zealand basketball legend Tom Abercrombie. He's going to join us, which is pretty cool. He's going to talk about his thoughts on the NBA Finals, the fact he's back in the Breakers, talk about his career. We'll throw some stuff to him on the NBA, but he's played against Giannis, Steph, James Harden, Anthony Davis, so many players.
Yeah, he is a legend of New Zealand basketball. Like he almost is the Breakers. Like you can't imagine the Breakers without Thomas Abercrombie and stuff. And yeah, I think it's just so cool that he's experienced like going over to America, having a crack at the NBA, playing in Europe. We'll talk about it later, playing at the Cougars.
Oh, yeah, and a dunk, an amazing dunk that he had over the Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA. So it's pretty incredible. We'll get his thoughts on the NBA very shortly. To be honest, when I messaged him, I was like, I'll message him, but I don't think he's going to, why would he want to come on our podcast? But what a nice, awesome dude, the fact that he's coming on the podcast. So he'll join us very, very shortly. It's a big podcast, so stick around for that. Before we bring Thomas Abercrombie in, we need to do the TAB Good Punt of the Week.
Yeah, and look, a month ago, we put a pretty big bet on saying that $3.75, the Nuggets are going to go all the way in the West, which was like they were favourites to do it, but we had doubts of like the Warriors, Suns.
Yeah, it was still a long way to go. So we put $100. Yeah, so every week we get to make a $100 bet for the TAB, and it goes into an account at the ACC. And at the end of the year, I think they're going to give that money away to someone.
I thought you said you were going to take it. Or no?
Well, I was trying. That someone could be me. Yeah, they give it away to someone. I'm hoping I'm going to be that someone. So there's my thought, because we've had a few shocker bets recently. So we've got $100 on the Nuggets to win the Western Conference, right?
Yeah.
So if that comes in, we get $300 and something, I think, because it was $3.
Yeah, $320.
Okay, so that's $100 on that one. Yeah. So I think, why don't we put another $100 on the Lakers?
Do it. Let's hedge it
To win. Yep. Let's hedge our bets. Lakers, last night, look, they were paying just over $2. So we could double our money. So I think it was $2.20 or something. So whatever odds we get on, so let's say the Lakers win, we get $220, argument's sake. We have made back our $200 we've spent.
Yeah.
And we're up $20. The Nuggets win. We obviously make back the $200 we spent and get another $130 because they're paying $300. So either way, we're up.
And I think it's all bonus bets from our good mates over the TAB. So pretty much it's not actually we're only winning money as well, and we're giving the money away to you, the listener, as well. So it's a win-win, and we're actually going to win something.
We'll win something.
Guaranteed win this week. Probably the first one we've ever had on this podcast.
I know. When I thought of it last night, I was like, oh my God, that maybe this is genius. I mean, it's, we're still putting money. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do this week. The finalists have been found. We're going to get more into that. Very unusual. It's the same finalists as the bubble. The bubble. People were like, the bubble, was it you? You
were always doubting the bubble. I was like, mate, I'm so happy for LeBron. You're like, he can't finish on this. But yeah, it's
I'm stoked.
It's exciting, and I reckon we'll have a chat to Tom. Enough from us. Let's get some actual
let's
basketball
bring him in there.
royalties.
Let's bring Thomas Abercrombie into the studio, and let's get into the podcast. Tom Abercrombie, nice to have you here.
Thank you, fellas.
You're far too good for this podcast. So we got you at a weak moment, or what's going on?
Yeah, I had a little block in the middle of the day. We're lucky it's off season at the moment.
Well, but sign up again for the Breakers, which is awesome. Was that a big decision coming back? Because I know how much the Breakers love you, and you love the Breakers. But was it a big decision to sort of come back?
Yeah, it was. It's getting to that sort of stage of my career where it's a bit of a year by year basis now, and sit down after each year and make some decisions. And honestly, like I didn't want to think about it during last season, and just allowed myself to enjoy that season and the process and try and have some fun playing basketball again, which I really did. I love what we did and what we're continuing to build. So for me, I wanted to come back and try and take care of that unfinished business.
But you must look at LeBron's 38, PJ Tucker's 38, 35. You got a few more years left. And Udonis plays for the Heat. He's 40 or something, isn't he? So, you've got a bit.
I feel great. Physically, I was as good as I've ever been last year. And it's funny, I was off visiting some school groups and stuff earlier this week, and they always love to ask, pretty obvious question. How tall are you? How old are you?
Yeah.
And I always throw it back at them. I'm like, oh, how old do you think I am?
Oh, that's a risky thing with the kids.
There was a lot of like early 20s, 27, 28.
Which is great.
And I was like, that's fantastic.
And then sometimes I'll go like 71. And you're like, 71 or something.
No one even mentioned the 30s. So this is great.
Oh, that's good. Close to what, 400 games I was reading for the club?
Yeah, 399.
That's a crazy amount of games.
Felt a bit funny to finish on that. So that first game next year, we first game's at Spark Arena, so it'll be cool to tick off that little milestone for sure.
Do you get a new singlet every game?
Nah. I wish.
So you would wear the same?
We wear the same old sweaty singlet all season.
Do you?
Well, we usually have like 3 or 4 different strips. We have an away, a home, like a heritage, an Indigenous round, and like a city round. So there's about 5 different strips. But
are you doing your own washing? Joel does his washing in his flat, and buddy, it always comes to work in some random top by the end of the week.
No, they don't just take the singlets home, Russ. They never come
back. Right, I would have thought you would have got you look at some of the other professional teams, you would have thought maybe they'd get a top every game.
I'd love to keep them.
Yeah, I was like, my next question was like, carve one of your singlets.
Yeah, I'd give them away willy-nilly. They'd get sick of me.
Be quite long on me though, I'd imagine though, right?
I should have put that in the new contract.
Okay. So 6 championships for the Breakers.
6 championship series.
4.
Right. Yeah.
And they haven't won a series without yet. So you're kind of like a good luck charm for the Breakers.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Had some really good success early on in the career, and obviously we won 4 in about, I think it was 4 and 5 years. A real special time for the club, and it's been some lean pickings through then. We've had a number of changes, coaching, ownership. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but like to think we're starting to establish a little bit of stability and stuff now, and great to get back in that.
It was great last year, eh?
Yeah,
I mean, it was awesome.
Wicked,
it was awesome. But, like Brantley was one of your favourite players,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah. We love following it. It was like such a good journey last year, to be honest.
And so it's just hard to get the team back together again, because I imagine there's lots of other leagues going on around the world. There's Australian clubs maybe have more money. I don't know how the finances work and all that sort of stuff, but is it hard to get the team back for another season?
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty spot on there. Like, Europe's got some very good money they're throwing around, Asia as well, Japan, China, and especially the Americans, they have so many options, especially after you have a good season.
Yeah.
Everyone wants you. Barry's just signed in France with Victor Wembanyama's team for the rest of the playoffs.
Oh, really? Barry Brown?
Barry Brown has, yeah. So, those guys are in hot demand, and coming off great seasons, they'll have plenty of offers for more money in different places. But I think they really loved being in New Zealand and the culture and stuff down there. So, I know they're talking about trying to get all of them, or at least one of them, back. So hopefully it happens.
Oh, that's cool. Have you thought about life after basketball? Like, as far as what you want, you don't have to say what you want to do, but have you thought about that, or are you just kind of enjoying year by year? I mean, there's the Abercrombie and Fitch. You've got the name for the clothing brand.
Yeah, just work for the family business.
He's been waiting for that pun for, I think,
Abercrombie
years.
sounds like a good name for a law firm or something too. It feels like you've got one of those names you might see on a TV show like Suits or something, like Abercrombie and such.
Yeah.
But have you thought about what you want to do, or is it kind of keeping your options open?
I definitely keeping my options open, but it is something I think about a lot. I'm trying to prepare myself as best as possible. I'm doing a Masters in Business Administration at the moment.
That's cool.
Which I'm about 3/4 of the way through. So I'll have that hopefully pretty much finished up by the end of next season, which is good to have in the back pocket. And whether or not I sort of stay in that sports world or move on into a business sort of role somewhere, haven't really decided yet. But hopefully those decisions become a little bit clearer as we move along.
So we're going to get you to hang out with us for a wee bit and talk about some of the NBA stuff. But just looking through, you've played against quite a lot of players that are playing currently in the NBA. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. No, it's especially. I mean, in college, it was a bit of
Cougars?
a golden
the Cougars?
era.
What a great name. Were you a 50-year-old in the viaduct out there
Go
at
Cougs.
3 o'clock at Daddy Doolan's? Or is the Cougars a different sort of, more like the Tiger version?
Yeah, we don't get the Tiger version of Cougars in New Zealand, do we?
Yeah.
But no, I played in the Pac-10 back then, and I remember we played against UCLA. They had a starting 5 of Russell Westbrook, Kevin Love, Darren Collison, Lukumba Mute, and Aaron Aflalo, who are all...
Wow.
I'm not sure if they're all playing anymore, but very good NBA players. There was Ryan Anderson playing for Cal, the Lopez brothers playing for Stanford. Aaron
so that's
Brooks
at college level.
Oregon. This is all in college level. So as I said, it was a golden era for the Pac-10. There was so much talent coming through. We had actually a guy called Klay Thompson came and took my spot when I left.
Oh, really?
At Washington State.
Whatever happened to that guy? I don't know.
He's gone on. He's done all right.
He's done okay, yeah.
Yeah, but no. So I mean, I'd like to say I played against those guys, but I pretty much sat on the bench in college, so I didn't get get to play against them too much. But we played Team America at the last World Cup, or 2 World Cups ago, which had James Harden, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis.
I know.
All playing for them. It was incredible.
Is that crazy when you're like obviously a huge fan of basketball? You played for your life. Is that crazy to be playing alongside Anthony Davis, James Harden playing against them? Or do you not try and think about that in the game?
For the most part, you don't think. But when you coming up against those guys, like it's pretty mind-boggling. These guys have such a aura about them that when you're trying to guard James Harden, it's just oh man,
this is James Harden.
Snap out of it.
Yeah, and then Giannis as well. You played against Giannis.
Yeah, we played against Giannis. We actually did pretty good against Giannis. We pushed Greece right to the edge. But man, that guy is just a physical specimen. Like just incredible, the amount of ground he covers in every step. It was a good thing we're playing on a FIBA court, which is a little bit smaller than the NBA court, but that extra bit of space in the NBA it's no wonder that guy can just do whatever he wants. He's incredible. And
the breakers, I forgot that audio around. Is that floating around? I mean, if this was me and I was you, I'd be watching this every morning. This is you dunking over Jared Jackson Jr.
By Rusbatch on the move, kicks it back for Abercrombie, drives it in off the lane, and he jams with a right hand on top of Jaren Jackson Jr.
Only the best defensive player this year in the NBA as well.
Yeah.
That's almost the best thing is how much of a good defender he's gone on to be.
So you're saying at the time it was a rare slip up.
I take a small bit of credit for that.
So after that, he's like, man, I'm going to lock it down.
What am I doing? Letting a Kiwi dunk on me? I got to pick my game up.
It'd be pretty cool. It's a pretty cool moment for you. I mean, you're probably not thinking about it in the game. You're just playing the game like you always do. But afterwards, to look back and go, hey, yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome because I've always been a pretty good athlete, but I haven't dunked on a lot of people. I always think about it, and then you take those 2 steps, you go up to sort of finish, and then for some reason you change your mind in the air and go to lay it up or something, and you really finish strong like that. And I really finished with one hand like that as well. So I don't know where it came from. Maybe it was just being in that environment in the NBA. And it's a bit of a carefree sort of attitude. It's like, screw it. When am I going to be in this situation again? And just went for it. It was wicked, man.
How do they prepare for those games? Because they're pre-season games for them, right? But they're still, do you feel like they're giving it?
Nah.
Right. Right. Well, as you would in pre-season. I mean, and it's probably like the NBA regular season compared to playoffs as well. Like they really lock in when they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's pre-season. Most of those top guys are merely just playing in those games to get the legs ticking over and kick back into it. Each team's in a different situation, but usually if it's the sort of start of the preseason, it's giving a lot of the younger guys a run to see who's going to make that final squad because they haven't made their final cuts yet. But obviously, last year Adelaide upset the Phoenix Suns and beat them, so there's going to be a little bit more of a alarm bells ringing, I think, when some of the Australian NBL teams come to play them next time.
Oh, it's pretty exciting stuff. Let's get into the NBA. We'll keep you around for a bit if you don't mind. Throw some stuff your way.
Yeah, man, for sure.
All right, let's get into it.
This is the starting 5 for the Benchwarmers.
Y'all ready for this?
Okay, so both the East and the West, they've cracked a semi. We've got the Final Four. Two playoff teams have made the conference finals, which is pretty crazy, Joel.
Yeah, play-in teams.
They're
good.
They're all in the playoffs, aren't they? Yeah, you're right.
I feel like everyone who watches any NBA just knows that this is like the time that you want to be watching it as well. The teams start trying. Big players just play big games and
it's
stuff.
For us to start. We need to start trying on this podcast. Exactly. That's why we've got Tom here this week.
That's why we've got the big names in for the big
podcast playoff time.
It's a repeat of the bubble too. The teams that all made the bubble, the Lakers versus the Nuggets, the Celtics versus the Heat.
Wow.
And I guess unlike the bubble, because the bubble was obviously played with no crowd, they're going to be playing the games home and away. How much does playing at home, for the Breakers, you guys had, seasons where you weren't playing at home. I mean, how much does it really help playing at home?
Massive for us. Last year having 2 years where we didn't play at home, you learn not to take that for granted anymore.
Yeah.
We had a wicked atmosphere at Spark. That place was buzzing, especially in the playoffs. Incredible atmosphere. And it's the same in the NBA, like the playoff atmosphere, the intensity of the fans goes up another level, and that playoff, that home court advantage actually starts to really make a bit of a difference. And Denver's one especially. Those guys are playing at like
altitude
10 million feet above sea level.
Yeah.
I remember playing an NCAA tournament game there. And like the first practice, we died.
Really?
Like just struggling for breath.
So it makes that much of a difference.
Yeah.
And how long would it take to get acclimatized to it?
Yeah, I'm sure those guys have got all sorts of tactics to doing it. LeBron's probably got a freaking hyperbaric chamber in his hotel room that he's getting accustomed to pretty quick. But yeah, those guys it's pretty quick turnarounds in the playoffs too. Sometimes they're playing every second day, so you don't have a lot of time to get used to it. But those guys have got everything at their disposal in terms of preparation, so I'm sure they're doing everything they can to get used to it.
Now, the Golden State Warriors are obviously gone from the series. They're beaten by the Lakers. But the defending champs, they're out. The Coorgi, I don't know if you saw the Coorgi that was going around. There was a prediction dog that was going around, and there was a Coorgi on a staircase, and they were throwing up a little ball to the Coorgi, and his nose would basically shoot it into the hoops. And the Coorgi had predicted every game through that series, and then until the last couple, but it predicted the Golden State Warriors to win the last couple. And as a Lakers fan, I started going, oh my God, the Coorgi's picked correct. It's going to be all over, even when the Lakers were up. But the defending champs, the Warriors, they're out. There's a lot of talk now about the dynasty being all over. Steph, Clay, Draymond, they're still amazing players. What do you think? Like, looking on, I mean, players, do you think they should stick together?
I think those guys should. I think they've still got plenty left in the tank to give it another run. It was... Steph was unbelievable. Clay had his moments. Draymond did what he did. I think the pieces around them probably struggled at that level. Guys like Jordan Poole didn't have great playoff series. But I think if you retool those kind of pieces, those guys can have another shot in them. But, contracts and money is a big one in the NBA. Like, how do you keep Draymond? You look at Boston with Tatum and Brown both making all NBA teams. I saw something the other day. Like, if you want to keep both of those guys, it's something like $600 million or more if they want to keep them. So all those kind of decisions come into play as well.
Is there a team you support in the NBA?
I kind of follow the Warriors just because Clay, I think as we were talking about, I'm not sure if we were talking about it on air or before the podcast, he took my spot.
Oh, no, you did. Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah,
at my college team. So, but I got to meet him a couple of times and I've kind of followed him since.
Because you played against Steph and Clay, I think, in one of those teams. Were they playing for the USA team?
Yeah, they're both playing for USA.
Against USA?
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. Were they unreal in that game, or?
It's different in that environment. I think FIBA basketball and NBA basketball are different kind of beasts, and that court's a little bit shrunk. The 3-point line's a little bit closer in, and they've got 12 other sort of superstars on the team. They're trying to share the ball around.
Yeah.
So no one was really dominating, but you can tell. I mean, they're all extremely skilled and good.
One of the moments from the Golden State Warriors I thought was interesting during the week, Gary Payton Jr., he threw up and he sort of caught it in his mouth, and then he sort of had to do the thing where he swallowed. I mean, nerves.
That was impressive.
They're a factor. I mean, do you get nervous before games, big games now? I mean, you must do, but do you find ways to kind of get through that?
I mean, I still get nervous all the time, and usually I take it as a good thing. The games I don't get nervous, I'm like, oh man, like you got to find something else to really get into the game, because the nerves just prepare you so well, and it's not a nice feeling, but I also know that when I'm nervous I'm usually going to play well. So it's a strange. I've never thrown up in my mouth though.
You haven't done that as well. The Lakers obviously gone through, then they've gone from pretty much, it was a write-off. We laughed. Storm started the podcast with us at the start of the year, and he picked the Lakers winning, and 12 games in, we were like, there were 2 wins, 10 losses. We're like, Storm, you're dreaming.
It was pretty much till the All-Star break where they made those trades. They managed to get like Hachimura, the Vanderbilt, D'Lo and stuff, which was somehow they got all these really good trades, and then they've just gone on, and clearly when Anthony Davis is fit, he's playing great. LeBron is obviously great. Austin Reeves, he's been so impressive, I reckon, as well. Just like a 24-year-old little white boy, pretty much. I'm sure he's not little in person, but he looks like just a little white guy.
All those guys that actually look little are actually quite tall,
they're probably huge. But he's just like stepping up, and the Lakers could honestly, if they can manage to shut down Jokic, they could go all the way.
It's going to be huge. The Joker taking on AD as well. LeBron, I mean, someone you've been in the league a long time, Tom. LeBron, just incredible, 20 years in the NBA.
It is phenomenal, the level he's still playing at after that amount of time. Like, he just continues to amaze, and I say surprised, but we shouldn't be surprised now. No. He just continues to get it done. But watching the Joker's impressive as well. Like, that guy,
he's incredible. Like, for a big guy to have all that skill as well.
So much skill and so much smarts, and just the uniqueness of his game is just really fun to watch. And I think he continues to just surprise people with the stuff he does out there and putting up some ridiculous numbers in the playoffs.
Do you feel like LeBron, like I'm a huge LeBron fan, he's my favorite player, but I feel like, the older he gets, he's probably smarter now. Like he sort of paces himself, kind of like me, hungover on a Sunday with the kids, you're exerting your energy when you have to exert your energy, But it does feel like he'll really step it up when he needs to, but other times he'll probably pace himself. He's still amazing and dominating, but it's a smarter LeBron as he sort of gets older.
Yeah, for sure. And, you see it during the regular season. He's a bit more strategic about what sort of games he's playing and when he's resting. And it's, you put that into a game situation, it's the same thing. You learn where you can take little rests and which position. I don't want to say taking positions off, but maybe he switches on to someone who just sits in the corner and doesn't do much on offense or something like that. Like
Right.
you find your little periods to get your rest when you can, and he's a master at it.
He's played 1,421 NBA games in total, which is that's pretty crazy for 38 or something. Yeah, he's
It's ridiculous. Like I
insane.
was absolutely spent playing a 5-game series in the NBL playoffs this year. Like that was physically and emotionally like really draining. And I remember thinking at the time, like, man, how do these guys play 7-game series?
Yeah.
Back after back after back, like they're playing sometimes 3-4 of them in a
You're
in a
right.
playoff run.
And traveling across America,
Yeah.
huge country.
It's like a whole nother season.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal what those guys do.
Okay, so we've got the Lakers taking on the Nuggets, which is going to be huge. What are we thinking? I mean, I love the Lakers to take it out, but it's going to be a big step up.
yeah. Well, I
It
think
was
like
a Steph Curry pun, but yeah,
no, the
it's better written down.
It is. Maybe should have kept it on your head. But I don't know. I reckon it's the time. The Nuggets they've been pushing. Jokic has got his 2 MVPs and stuff. Like they've sort of been pushing, and now Jamal Murray is back from injury. Like their guys are looking fit. They look like a complete team compared to someone like Phoenix Suns, who are 2 incredible players, but couldn't really fill the rest of their team too well. But I think the Nuggets deserve it, and they're going to go through.
And after you said what you said before about playing at altitude too, they're going to have the home court advantage for more. So it's going to be pretty tough for the Lakers.
I think they're going to be, I think the Nuggets will be tough to beat. They've been one of my picks since the start of the playoffs, and they've been pretty impressive throughout. So I think as good as the Lakers are playing, I think it's going to take something pretty special, and they've continued to surprise people the whole way along. So who knows? But if I had to pick, I'd say it would be the Nuggets.
I'll go Lakers just because I want them to win, but it's going to be tough. All right, the Suns, as you said before, Booker was amazing. KD was awesome. But then all of a sudden they fire the coach. I mean, coaches get a pretty tough run, don't they, in the NBA?
They do.
It happens.
It's a pretty short leash.
I know. Monty Williams is amazing. A couple of years ago, he was one of the best coaches. And they've had a pretty good season. But it's just crazy how quickly that happens.
I think the thing with the NBA is like these guys are coaching such big personalities and egos as well. And when you've been with a team for 3-4 years, like sometimes the impact of your voice can lose a little bit of its power. And they just feel like sometimes they need a change, bring someone else in with a fresh voice and attitude to try and remotivate some of these superstars. It's a tough thing to do, and as much as they're coaching basketball, they're trying to control some of these superstars and their personalities, which can be tougher than anything.
I see Monty Williams is now being approached and targeted by the Bucks. They've got rid of their coach. Now they just really want him, which is interesting.
Yeah, like he'll get snapped up in a second.
Exactly. Still a great coach, right? The Knicks were out. They're out now, but they had a pretty good season. When you look at back, a pretty surprisingly good season. I don't know if you got this song. Is that song around at the moment? I found this during the week. We have to have a song to sum up the round. And there's a Knicks song that I found online. I never actually heard before, but it was playing during the coverage as well. It's like a white guy rapping.
We are the New York Knicks. We are the New York Knicks.
It's a good one though, because I can probably rap along to it as well.
It's very American.
Apparently the guy who wrote the song quite a while ago, he wrote it for $4,000, a white dude, quite a while ago, and now he's a multi-millionaire and he's the co-owner of the Hawks.
Wow.
He's really, not out of rap, but he's gone
So this
on.
song's taken him all the way through.
Yeah.
Nice.
It feels like if my mum was rapping and she was kind of like, so I could hear all the words and enunciating quite well, as I would probably rap as well. So the Knicks had a good season. The 76ers, though, they're out again. They were MVP, Joel Embiid. Even with him and Harden, didn't quite make it. Game 7 again.
Yeah, they really had the foot on the throat after winning game 5 away. Game 6, they had to close it in Philly, and they just lost. Tatum, he was he had like 3 points in 3 quarters and then got 16 points in the last quarter, and they could only manage to get 13 as a team, which they really dropped the ball in that game 6. And then game 7, the third quarter just got blown out. It was a shame to see because Philadelphia, they just have so much potential, so many great players, but they just can't get past that second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, rumours that James Harden could be going back to the clubs of Houston again. But Jason Tatum, it was pretty incredible because he couldn't hit anything, it felt like. And then after the game, we got Tatum talking about him. And this shows probably the confidence that you need to have at that level.
I'm humbly one of the best basketball players in the world. Go through struggles, go through slumps. It's a long game. And, thankfully I got some great teammates that held it down. Brogdon, JB, Smart, Al. And they all trust me, right? They tell me keep taking great looks. It's going to fall. Keep impacting the game in other ways.
So he had 1 point at halftime in that game. Then he had basically 0 from 10 field goals. Then he scored 16 in the final quarter. Then in the next game, he had 51. It was just amazing. As a player, Tom, is it hard when you have sort of slumps and you miss a couple of shots to kind of mentally still push through, or do you just trust yourself that you've been there before and you can do it again?
No, I mean, it's tough. And honestly, that's what separates these guys. Like for him to be able to just flick that switch and not be fazed by being 0 for 10 or whatever it was and come out and just play with confidence and shoot his shots and start to make them, like that's what makes him one of the best players in the world.
Yeah, humbly speaking.
Because it's really hard. Like everyone has games like that where they're not shooting it well. You can be in a little bit of a slump and you start to second guess yourself and feel like you're taking bad shots that are not good for the team. And
shots sometimes feel like, I mean, I've never played anywhere near there, but shots don't feel like they sometimes just don't drop. They'll go around you'll pretty much do everything but get the ball in. I imagine that's frustrating too.
Yeah, it is. And as he said, like his teammates encouraging him to continue shooting and continue to take good shots. That's exactly what you got to do. You have to have faith that the result is almost irrelevant. If your team is generating good shots for you and you're taking them and they're missing, that's a good shot for the team, and that's what you get to keep telling yourself anyway.
So basically the Sixers, I was looking, they passed on him in the draft. They could have had him. They had first pick in that draft for Tatum, and now he's pretty much sent them home. They're taking on the Heat. Yep. Your boys, the Heat. You like the Heat?
Yeah, no, I'm very stoked with that. It's interesting, the Heat as well. We say it every week, they've just developed these almost unknown players like Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent stuff. They're all stepping up at the right time, which is great to see.
Not giving them much chance though, the experts as well. But that's kind of what the Heat kind of like. I mean, it must be kind of nice. You must feel that a little bit from time to time in the Australian competition, whereas, the Breakers probably, I mean, they've succeeded in a lot of levels, but this year maybe coming into the season, didn't have the best year the year before. It was probably quite nice to prove some doubters wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And Miami just have a toughness and physicality about them and a belief in themselves and the way that they play, that they can beat anyone. And they've been through plenty of adversity this year, which can, as we know, you can go one or two ways from that. And it's made them a lot stronger. Jimmy is just an incredible leader.
How good is he?
Just seems like such an awesome dude as well. Every time he talks, I'm like, man, this guy's wicked. And those guys are just, embraced each other and they're playing some wicked basketball. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again.
Well, they're given 3% chance according to ESPN Analytics or something. But that seems like something that could fuel them to winning. I did like this as well. Bam in the dirt is gone, as we like to say. But I thought it was cool. He was doing a press conference during the week and his phone rang and this is what he said.
I'll check that one.
Oh, yeah, he just said, "Hey, mummy." That's nice.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Hold the phone.
And it's not just. Hold up. Hi, mommy. Yes.
This is pretty cute. I thought it was awesome.
No,
it was like a conversation
cool
with his mum in the middle of the press conference as well and still calling him mum. Which is nice. Yeah, it's nice.
It was very cool.
Yeah. Hey, so what are we thinking? We're thinking Heat or we're thinking Celtics? I know what your heart's saying, Joel, but
look, I didn't think the Heat could beat the Bucks as well, but they did that. And they've played the Celtics so many times. I don't know. The Heat might do it. Heat in 6.
It's going to be tough.
I'm picking the Heat in 6.
Could be an upset. Upset potentially.
For sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, they've done it before. They can do it again. But the Celtics are...
They're so good, eh?
So good, so talented.
Yeah.
But, I mean, those guys have got issues as well. Like, they're not a complete team, I don't think. Heat, if anyone can sort of expose some of those weaknesses, they can. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy goes and does it again.
Now, before we head into the stat bunker, I saw something, I think it was on the House Highlights Instagram, and it said, would you rather attempt, it was like a would you rather basketball style, would you rather attempt a layup to win for $1 million or a three-pointer to win for $1 billion?
Probably a layup.
Well, I was thinking definitely for me. I mean, 3 points way outside my range.
Yes.
But what about yourself, Tom? Like, if you had to,
man.
not that you put money on anything you do, but what would you trust yourself more? I guess would be a layup, right? But if you had, you're pretty blooming good at knocking down your threes.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a chance to sort of warm up and get all ready, and I had one 3-point shot, like in a practice situation, I'd probably shoot threes at 80%. But that's a different kind of pressure.
It's probably interesting because even I've been lucky enough to go watch a couple of NBA games in my life, and before the game, they just like they can't miss. But then obviously with the pressure and people up in their face, it suddenly gets a whole lot harder.
To be honest, I'd probably go for the 3, eh?
You would go the 3.
I'd take the risk.
Yeah. Oh, you probably nail it as well.
Yeah, 100%. I also, before we go on to the stat bunker as well, like I feel like when you went over to the NBA and played in the summer league and stuff for Phoenix Suns, how was that? What was the experience like over there in America?
Yeah, it's pretty eye-opening when you get over there, and so many athletes and egos and everything floating around. It's a crazy environment to be in, but it was good fun, like just being immersed in America and seeing how much they love their basketball and stuff. And summer league's a tough environment. You got a whole bunch of young guys trying to prove themselves, and we had a new coach as well who wanted to prove himself and didn't really give everyone on the team a decent shot at it. But it was a wicked experience.
So I guess you're playing for a team, but also trying to prove that you belong in the NBA, right? So
you've got scouts and GMs from all over the world, all over Europe and Australia. Every league in the world is represented at the summer league, and it's almost like just a giant trial for these guys. And we all know what trials can be like sometimes. You're in inner instincts take over, and you just want to show what you can do rather than it doesn't necessarily suit like a team orientated play.
Well, I imagine you're right. It's not really designed for that. Was it pretty cool to do that? To go, that's so close. That's the pinnacle of basketball.
Yeah, and I was wicked. Like, and I went to about 5 mini camps before that as well. So you get to go into all these facilities and sit in the locker rooms. You sit in these the same seats all the superstars are sitting in, and try and steal their socks and.
I think it was Spurs,
are
Bucks, Rockets, and Mavs I was reading during the week, all the mini camps you've been into, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was a bit of a roller coaster, man. Like, I was traveling every couple of days. Like, you'd have some of them are a day, some of them are 2 days, some of them had 100 guys, some of them had 20 guys. Like, they all run them a little bit differently, but all the head coaches are there sort of running the show and having a look, and it's a pretty wicked environment to be in.
Let's head to the stat bunker just quickly. Couple of stats we want to throw out there today. Every NBA head coach with the best record over the last six seasons is no longer on that team. So that shows what you're saying before.
Don't set the bar too high.
The coaches have just been got rid of like that. I thought it was as well another massive stat. It's been over 1,600 days since LeBron and KD last played each other in the NBA.
Interesting.
So, the wait will be a lot longer, obviously, with those two teams not making, or KD not making it through. But it's pretty crazy how players just can end up that way.
Yeah, that one's kind of disappointing, eh? Because it's like two, arguably the best players in the world. Like, you want to see them playing against each other, and there's only so many more times it's going to happen. And LeBron's probably not at his absolute peak anymore, so you don't get those two absolute titans going at against each other at their peak. So, yeah, a bit disappointing, that one, eh?
I got a good one here as well. Like Joel Embiid. I gave him a bit of stick this season, but I do feel sorry for him now. He's almost turning 30, and he's never made it past the second round of the playoffs, and he's the only MVP in history to never make it past the second round in playoffs.
Oh wow!
Not saying that in the next few years I'm sure that they could go on, whatever team he's in can go on to win, but that was an interesting one.
And finally, Kevin Love has never lost an Eastern Conference playoff series.
Wow. I feel like
obviously with the Heat, with the Cavs, is when he's made it, he's kind of gone through to the finals. Sometimes lost the finals, but that's pretty cool. He's almost like a good luck charm to have on your team.
He also seems just like a team player that you were talking about before as well. Someone that's probably not going to come into a trial and just like stand out that much by himself. But yeah, ever since joining the Heat as well, they've kind of had an end of season resurgence just from him.
Yeah, wicked to see him playing again, eh? I almost got lost a little bit on that Cleveland roster and had a couple of really tough years where he didn't really want to be there, but he's still getting paid $30 million, so he sucked it up. Good on him. But
he's good like that. He's good like that.
And before we let you go, Tom, we'll just do the alley-oop, some of our favourite funny moments from the week.
It's the big alley. Ooh, it's not the one name.
Now, Jimmy, I'm talking all over that intro, but it doesn't matter. Before we were talking about, you're talking about the awesome Jimmy Butler. So much personality and a lot of personality in the press conference after the Heat won as well. He had his shirt off, he had his pecs out, he was looking ripped. He was sitting there with Kyle Lowry, and they were giving each other some grief.
What do you think sets you guys apart from maybe the typical Heat seed?
We got Kyle Lowry.
They're swearing away. They're swearing as well. I was giving a grief about Lowry. Was like, I could take my shirt off, mate, but I don't want to upstage you. I mean, have you ever done a press conference with your shirt off?
No, they haven't taken the kit off yet. I'm trying to think what the craziest thing I've done in press conferences. Nothing like that.
You're probably quite exhausted by the end of the game. I need to step it up. Yeah. It's kind of cool though that those guys can, and there's so much personality on show.
Oh, it is. I mean, those press conferences can be a little bit boring and monotonous, and guys go in and pressos ask the same questions over and over again. So it's cool to see these guys mix it up a little bit and do some different stuff in there.
Austin Reeves, we were talking about him before, Joel. Well, he got a bit excited. He was sort of high-fiving a fan after making a shot in the Lakers game, and probably, like me, as a white guy, he kind of missed and slapped the guy in the face accidentally.
I accidentally slapped a guy in the face, so whoever that is, I'm sorry. But it was just emotions. I was just, super happy.
Imagine, a lot of high fives in basketball too, Tom.
Yeah, but some guys are just bad at high fives.
I think Ben Boyce might be up there. Worst high fiver in New Zealand.
I'm bad at predicting when people go for a handshake or like the shake on the side or what we're doing, and sometimes I really screw that up.
That's a tricky thing in basketball too. You get that all the time, that conflict, but I don't think I'm very good at high fives either. Everyone's got like their little, complicated routines and stuff before games now.
Do you have the handshake stuff? Because LeBron, that's the thing I admire about LeBron, not only his basketball memory, we're talking about this last week, for plays and how everything plays out, but also the handshakes. Everyone's got a different handshake with
phenomenal
LeBron.
Way. Yeah. And they're not simple either.
I know. It's like, it's pretty cool. Do you guys have secrets to the handshakes and stuff for the teams?
Well, our team manager, who's an awesome dude, Matty Blackwell this year, he was just wicked to have around. He had a different handshake for every player who would do before the game, so he was kind of the handshake guy.
No, that's pretty cool. And finally this week, something from my playbook. I often give Jono a bit of grief about the hair loss, and this was I think Richard Jefferson getting a bit of grief from Kendrick Perkins.
I agree with that. I believe the Lakers have a complete team. I believe that the Celtics and Philly both have complete teams. I mean, what is your definition of a complete team?
I think a team that has... Look, again, we're splitting hairs here. I understand.
We're not splitting hairs ever.
No, it was a good burn. Straight off the bat.
I don't agree with a lot of stuff Perk says, but that was some of his best work.
That was quick. Tom, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. As I said before, you're way too good for this podcast, but it's been really cool hearing your insight into players you played against and basketball as well. So it's awesome you're back on the Breakers as well.
No worries. Thanks for having me, boys. It's good.
One last thing as well before you leave. Sorry, I had to ask it. Steven Adams, do you think he'll ever play for New Zealand?
Oh,
have you played with him, or has he always been?
No, never played with him.
And did he play? You played against him though, right? From one of the Breakers games, was he playing?
Yeah, so we played the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah, he was playing for the Thunder, right?
Game.
Yeah,
so played against him there, which was wicked.
Great amazing as a Kiwi, just doing so well.
Yeah, he is. He's a phenomenal player. He's got great skill for a big man and stuff as well. He'd help the Tall Blacks immensely, but to be honest, I don't blame him for the stance that he's sort of taken. There's a lot of money on the line. And, that's his day job. He's got to take care of himself in that respect. He's coming off a knee injury this year, so I wouldn't expect to see him suit up for the Tall Blacks at the World Cup this year. He's not going to come back for a World Cup qualifier against some of these teams during the season as well. So the windows for him to actually play for the Tall Blacks are pretty small. Would have been great. I think the stars had sort of aligned for this year. Those guys didn't make the playoffs. Had he been healthy, he might have given it a shot. But everything's sort of got to align, I think, for him to give it a go. And I know he wants to one day, so I'd like to think it'll happen.
Awesome. Well, Tom, as I said before, thank you for hanging out with us. It's been lots of fun.
Wicked. Thanks, boys.